Welcome back to the 10th Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, and we are now finishing up our people section by dropping dime on our best directors of 2023. Same way we did with the actors and actresses, 3 honorable mentions each, and then number 3, number 2, and number 1. I'm going to get things started with my 3 honorable mentions for Best Director of 2023. Those honorable mentions go to Michael B. Jordan for Creed 3, Alexander Payne for The Holdovers, and Kenneth Branagh for A Haunting in Venice. I've given more Haunting in Venice love than I expected to up to this point, which is nice. So look, Michael B. Jordan taking his turn as director and obviously pulling double duty as the star of Creed 3. And look, absolutely immaculate boxing choreography and cinematography. Like the cinematography in the Creed Dame fight is like maybe the most beautiful boxing cinematography maybe I've ever seen. It was really something tremendous, and he has like actual directorial chops. It's not like well, we couldn't find the right, like, I have ownership over this and we couldn't find the right director, so I'm going to do it myself. Like, no, he actually has like real talent as a director. And displayed that in Creed 3, and obviously it's not the easiest thing in the world to direct yourself, basically, and to have the whole thing, you know, come across seamlessly, and in Creed 3 it really does. Alexander Payne for The Holdovers creates like a straight up 70s movie that I really felt like that movie like seeps joy, for me anyway. It seeped joy out of like every pore of this movie. Like, I was so delighted watching this movie. I really, really was. He marries an excellent screenplay with a really delightful tone and really good messaging with the movie as well. I actually think it's one of the stronger, more modern, or more recent, I should say, Christmas movies. Like, I feel like that's a movie I'll watch at Christmas time for years now. And so I think Alexander Payne accomplished something special with The Holdovers. And Kenneth Branagh is more of a nod here because I see how his directorial abilities, like I watched the Murder on the Orient Express, but I didn't watch the one in the middle. Oh shoot. Death on the Nile, thank you, yeah. So I didn't get to see Death on the Nile. So to kind of see the jump from Orient Express to Haunting in Venice, you really got to see how he's developed as a director. And I actually think like it was a real significant step forward. I thought a lot of the visuals in the movie were really inspired compared to what they were on Murder of the Orient Express. And I thought, like, the camera work was really good. The visuals, again, were incredible. And he got a really wonderful ensemble performance out of everybody in that movie. So I wanted to give a nod to him for most improved. We'll put it that way. Not that I thought the direction in Orient Express was bad. Yeah. But to see how he improved from there to Haunting in Venice, I wanted to put him up there.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it, but it was a fairly big jump from there to there. I never considered that movie, but it was good. The Holdovers, yeah. Yeah. Good. I gotta say something before I begin.
Okay.
There was so many directors that I seriously considered asking if I could do an honorable mention of the honorable mention. But so this is a murder, like my directors I think is a murderer's row of directors. So even if they're honorable mentions, that doesn't mean that they're not deserving of top 3, honestly.
Totally.
And that's especially true in my second honorable mention, Michael B. Jordan for Creed 3.
Nice.
Actually, not even no, not my. I'm calling an audible on the honorable mention. It's actually my first or my top honorable mention.
Okay.
So Ari Aster for Beau Was Afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is the one that is totally deserving. Greta Gerwig for Barbie. I mean, Michael B. Jordan. One point I guess I could make that you didn't make is that he infused his love of anime into Creed. He said, which is really cool. And like you can tell that this guy really studied the craft and really paid attention to the directors he's worked with because he is performing well beyond his experience level in terms of directing. Like you already commented on the cinematography of the fight, so I won't comment on that. But there's a scene where like Creed talks to Dame, and I can't remember what is said. But then like Creed is about walking out. He's like walking out, and there's like a wall between them, and Dame is like sitting there or standing there, and they kind of. I know Creed kind of looks. You obviously can't see him because there's a wall there, but that wall like it's so he so perfectly frames it to demonstrate the growing like wall between them and stuff, and I thought that was just like a beautiful shot. And then obviously, like you said, directing himself, and it was gritty. He handled the boxing stuff, like the walkouts and stuff, just really authentically. So I really love his directing there. Ari Aster, I mean, I don't. So I love Hereditary. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
I say that every time. And I don't really love any of his movies. I know he's only done like 3, but I don't love like Midsommar and this necessarily. But like I love his directing, and this isn't Hereditary level. But man, this guy is one of the most visually stunning directors working, especially within horror.
Yeah.
I mean, is Beau Was Afraid horror per se? Well, whatever. He's just so good. He makes areas menacing. Like in Hereditary, the house was like a menacing character. When he films a hallway or rooms, like you get the feeling there's something in there. And this is just a very interesting movie, both in terms of a plot, but more specifically just the way it looks here. So Ari Aster will probably make it in here for years to come, even if I don't love his movies, because I can't see this guy making a movie that isn't visually interesting.
Right. And
he does get good performances. Like Joaquin Phoenix is a great performance. So he gets the performance thing. And then there's Greta Gerwig for Barbie. From the moment the first trailer was released, it was like, why is this movie so pretty?
Right, it's true.
This movie looks gorgeous. All of a sudden, I didn't care, and then I care immensely just for like how it looks. We talk about directors, and we've mentioned how like we're not going to mention cinematographers. Like we don't have an award for cinematography or set design, so we incorporate all that in a director. I mean, the set design really deserves a lot of credit here.
Yeah.
And just the way everything looks like really plastic and pink.
Right.
And just it's like one of the more visually unique, or at least noticeable movies of the year. And then obviously there's like great performances in there with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. And the camera work is good, but it's just there's this sense of style and the color palette and whatnot that sells it. Barbie's like a really immaculately made film, honestly. Which is not something I thought I'd ever say. But here we are.
My number 3, Best Director of 2023, is Andre Øvredal for The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and this was as much of a surprise to me as probably as anybody else. I did not expect to really dig that movie as much as I did. Not that I really went in with no real expectations about it. Like, boy, I don't even really know what this is going to be. Like, I knew what the crux of the movie was, but like, boy, I don't know what this is gonna, like, this could be a gore fest, this could be like, I don't really know what angle this is gonna take. And the angle that it took was a slow, claustrophobic, exceptionally performed monster movie taking place entirely on a ship.
Yeah.
Right? So, he really, really nails this, like, slow pacing with practical effects. And what I loved about it was, or part of what I loved about it too, was like the evolution of Dracula as a monster.
Right.
Because like it begins and he's been in, or spoilers, he's been in a coffin for a long time, so he's weak, he's emaciated, he's very vulnerable. Yeah. And as he feeds and as he kills and he grows stronger, and the way his design changes and becomes Dracula in his full power and his full form, and just the whole way that the tone that this movie sets from like moment one all the way through to the end, just something so incredibly special. And to have done that based entirely on like one chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's pieced together from like the log entries from the Demeter. And I just thought it was such an immaculately put together movie, and I thought Andre Overdahl achieved something really special with it. So he's my number 3.
That one's really interesting because I don't think that highly of that movie, but I like these picks, and I like hearing the justification for them because it's not a boring pick, because didn't see that coming.
No, nobody else is gonna make that.
which is like I live for that stuff, even if I disagree. Though I don't know how much I disagree per se with what you said. I guess I just didn't give it as much deep thought. I like the movie though. I think it was well acted though. I will give it that. And there is like a claustrophobia to it, like you said. So that's an interesting pick. All right, so my number 3, we're going a little pretentious with Highlander Palmason for Godland.
Okay.
So who beats heavyweight directors like Gerwig and Asser? This dude from Iceland who made a movie about a Danish priest in the 19th century who goes to Iceland to build a church. And the thing is, Godland isn't even a movie I love. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with the writing, but that's not what this award covers. This gets number 3 because the directing is the star, and anytime a movie is that, I can say that about a movie, it has to be at least considered, right?
Yeah.
Someone said this, and it's not original, but this is basically Tarkovsky meets Herzog, and like,
ooh.
I mean, that's like, okay.
That's right up your alley, yeah.
So what I think the person meant is the way he captures scenery is especially reminiscent of Herzog's finest work, but the ponderous nature with some longer shots is a lot like Tarkovsky, and both these things are great. There's a scene at the end where the main character dies and the film just sits still, and every few seconds a bunch of time goes by. It's like seasons going through. It's just like astounding work. And really just some of the finest directorial work this year. There are other great scenes, but like I love the wide shots. It's just a beautiful film. I said this and you kind of laughed at this, but this is one of those movies that does make you more pretentious and you start saying cinema and film.
Right.
And this is one of them. It's like, this is cinema.
Capital C cinema.
Right. Yeah, so that's my number 3.
Oh, all right.
I probably butchered his name, but whatever. I always gotta have like a pretentious foreign pick in here.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's gotta find its way in there somewhere.
So there it is.
So speaking of pretentious foreign films, my number 2 best director of 2023 is Chad Stahelski for John Wick Chapter 4. The exact opposite of a big pretentious foreign film. It is a big, stylish, violent action movie in the John Wick style, featuring a top-down video game style shooter sequence that might be the best thing put on film all year. God, I love that scene. And it doesn't get old. Like, I would have thought that, because I've watched it a few times, and I'm like, this is going to get old eventually. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. That was, I love the fact that, like, big action movie, like, franchise movies are being made by kids that were just video game nerds in the 80s. Because you watch that and it's just like, he played a video game in the 80s and was like, someday I'm going to make something that looks like this. And he did. So, look, I'm sure we're going to talk about John Wick multiple times in future videos. So I'm going to cut it there, but like, I think Chad Stahelski did an incredible job with that movie. The John Wick movies are something special in this space. So he's my number 2.
There ain't no getting off this train we're on, because my number 2 is Chad Stahelski for John Wick Chapter 4.
Yeah!
Could have been number 1. I'm so conflicted on it. It doesn't matter. I mean, ultimately it doesn't matter because I love it either way. Like, the directing either way, right? I don't know what I'm really gonna add. Like, I love the marriage of, like, violence and actually legitimately beautiful shots.
Yes.
Like an artistic action movie, which is really what I want. Like, that's so friggin' cool. Like, I mean, the scene that you said is amazing. The usage of music is amazing. The choreography, of course, is amazing. And so, like, even though it's my number 2, I'm gonna also cut it here because, like...
Basically, what we're saying is, Chad, you did a real good job.
Yeah, right. Oh, actually, I will add, like, you kind of set this in motion a couple of years ago, I think with Chapter 3, I could be wrong, where you gave him prop for Chapter 3, and I had said, like, I never really considered it for, like, directing, like, as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And I still don't know that I would consider the first 3 for directing, though I haven't rewatched them.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was the first one where I was like, and maybe I was going in more with the or maybe Stahelski just decided that he was going to up his game, which I think is probably more likely.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, he did stuff in this one that, like, even beyond, like, choreography or whatever, but where I was just like, yeah, so.
My number 1 best director of 2023 is Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer.
Okay, fair.
So, we've had the... I think a little more so than me, but I think both of us have kind of had the Christopher Nolan conundrum, where you certainly have been kind of scared that, like, he's kind of lost me, and you
basically did, sort of, right?
This movie lays bare his technical brilliance. This is Christopher Nolan, I think, at, like, very close to the peak of his power, like, very, very close. It is big and loud, an absolute spectacle, incredible ensemble, like, casting, and just an incredible ensemble performance. And one thing that, and, like, you brought it up a little earlier in a different award, the use of color. It's not a new idea, but the use of color and lack of color. Right. But the way that he uses it in this is to basically denote reliable versus unreliable narration of the same events. Because some of the same event is talked about from different perspectives, and sometimes it's in black and white, and sometimes it's in color. And yeah, sometimes that's to denote, like, when it's actually happening and when it's being remembered, but he's ipso facto using that to denote reliable and unreliable narration. There's subtle differences in these same scenes, usually when it's from the perspective of Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Strauss. Yeah. Because he's perpetually trying to paint himself as not the bad guy, right? So in his recollections, he's always trying to paint Oppenheimer as, you know, self-involved and arrogant and whatever, and he was those things to a certain degree. Not necessarily the degree that Strauss believes that he was. But the way that Nolan uses something so, like, simple, very simple.
Yeah.
Color, non-color. Reliable narration, unreliable narration. And I picked up on that, like, very, very early in, like, my first watching. So then when I watched it a second time, I got to enjoy every single time that he did it. And I was just like, everything about this, the way it sounds, the way it looks, just the big spectacle of it all. Christopher Nolan, some of his absolute finest work as far as I'm concerned. Oppenheimer, my number 1 best directing.
Very thoughtful assessment of I guess we might as well say a legendary director, because I think he's going to go down in history as with some importance, I believe.
I would say so.
So we follow up the big movie with a bigger movie. The director is Kyle Edward Ball for Skinamarink.
Okay.
Here's the thing, right? So this movie might suck to some people. Like, I don't know. Like, here's why I gave it to him. Because it's so unique. There is nothing like this year. Like, Aggro Drift didn't come out. So, like, there was nothing else that was as unique as Skinamarink. For those who don't know, it's like I think a Canadian, actually, experimental horror movie that goes on in a house. And it's super grainy. You barely see any people. You're basically, like, looking at a wall, but there might be a little bit of the doorway and the darkness of it, and since it's grainy, it's hard to make anything out. And I understand why if somebody watches this and goes, "This really sucks" because it's boring. I get that. And honestly, while I did enjoy the movie, I think that if it was about 30 minutes long, it would be one of my favorites of the year because it way over. It's not even a super long movie. It's just this concept and this directing style shouldn't be fleshed out as long. Even like I think it was a little over an hour, and it should have been 30 minutes.
Right.
But I also really appreciate the uniqueness of it, and I love this experimental stuff. So as just a directing job, and the way that it plays with the darkness and your expectations, because you don't know if anything's gonna happen, because you just kind of look at stuff, and it's kind of like those scary YouTube videos that you might watch, where it's like this was caught on film, and it's like you might see a face behind like in a window, and you're kind of like, is it a ghost?
Right.
Is it a smudge? It's still kind of creepy though.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think this is the scariest movie of all time, but I just really respect it. You know, like we get so much stuff that is done really well and all that, but the truly unique stuff, you know, is I try to seek out. And Skinamarink, for all its flaws, I guess, is certainly unique. So I think Ball deserves some credit for the choices there. Not that I want every movie to be like this, or even really many movies to be like this.
Right.
I just remember watching it being like, this is shot really well.
If there are too many movies like this, we might all lose our minds.
Yeah, exactly. So
there you have it, folks. Kyle Edward Ball and Christopher Nolan, our #1 best directors of 2023, and that is going to bring to a close the people portion of the 10th Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. And what we've got coming up next, we're going to take a little break from the movies, and we are going to talk about our top 5 other media of 2023. And again, this could be a wide range of possibilities in terms of what could actually fall in this award. I have no idea what to expect in this. I can't wait for it. Come around on the next video, and we're going to be talking about our top 5 other media of 2023.